On the screen is a slide with a black background with white font reading, "Why does special education lead to segregation instead of inclusion?" by Anthony Workman. This was the question that I've thought about all the way back to when I saw one of my classmates taken out during the middle of a lesson. But what really got me focused on the issue was my brother and some of the treatment he was given by other students when he had to leave the classroom. So what is the reasoning behind this? On the screen now is a graph. The title of the graph is IDEA Part B Appropriation versus Full Funding Estimate, with billions of dollars on the y-axis going up by 5, and fiscal year on the x-axis measuring from 1995 to 2014. There are two sets of bars for each year, a yellow bar for full funding estimate and a purple bar for Part B appropriation. Each of the bars rise at a consistent rate to 2003, and then the blue bar seems to plateau while the yellow bar continues to rise. There's a significant rise in the blue bar in 2009 from ARRA funding, but levels drop the next year. As I mentioned earlier, funding is a large part of segregation, with issues of accommodations being a leading issue in the segregation conflict. Many schools cannot afford to pay for the needed materials and setting to accommodate disabled students. The graphic explained shows that although there is a rising need for full funding, there has not been nearly enough in any recent time period. How can we create inclusion without the funding or appropriate resource allocation? On the screen is a picture of a stone sign with text reading, "Waverly, founded 1829. Another major issue with adapting inclusion into schools are the strict education standards in place. I interviewed a family friend and intervention specialist, Melinda Rhodes, on her experience with special education at Waverly City Schools, my hometown school. Waverly is located in southern Ohio, in a town of less than 5,000 people. With closures of many manufacturing factories, Waverly has taken a hit that created a lot of poverty in the area. Drugs and poor health conditions have created a large disabled percentage relative to the overall population. In the 5th grade, 23 students out of 164 are using special education resources. Starting off, I asked Mrs. Rhodes what her views were on state testing.
We
Melinda
have
Rhodes, a
all
woman with
these
light blonde hair
students
and
that we have
glasses, sits at
identified
the
and
desk.
we've put on an individual education plan. We've taught them and we worked towards their goals on the individual education plan. State testing time comes around and across the board everyone is given the exact same test. How's that fair?
On screen is a black background with white text that says, "How do you picture an inclusive classroom and what steps are you taking to make this happen?" I continued my discussions with Mrs. Rhodes on her thoughts about an inclusive classroom and felt refreshed at the idea that she and others are making efforts for inclusion and a greater view of disability.
So
Melinda
inclusion in
Rhodes
the
comes back
classroom.
onto the screen.
My thought is when you walk into an inclusion classroom, you should be able to walk in the door and not necessarily be able to identify who's on an IEP, who is a regular ed kid. You should see either the general ed teacher standing and teaching, the intervention specialist who is not an aide, walking around the classroom helping all students, not just necessarily the IEP kids. In one of the classrooms I teach in with the reading teacher, we co-teach. And so in that class, you may see me, the intervention specialist, leading the lesson and her walking around helping all the students and vice versa.
On the screen is a black background with white text reading, "It's not a question of why, but how can we create inclusion?" Although Mrs. Rhodes shares a great insight of how inclusion should be, it's not always the case. In one research article, administrators are shown to have supplemented qualified special education specialists with underqualified teachers due to lack of talent acquisition and funding. In many rural schools, it is difficult to find qualified individuals with the passion for the thought of inclusion and a better special education program. I've described to you the situation that many public school systems are going through, and in rural systems, it's even worse. We analyzed why there is segregation in these environments, but how can we stop segregation and create a classroom that's universally designed for all?